All right, we might just get started, and then we'll just see. Hopefully, the last few will join us at some point. But welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us. This is the Ayrshire Women's Cycle Festival, and it's the first day and our first live webinar with a Q&A session in the end. And it's Sandra Lavergne. She's the Development Officer for Communities at Cycling Scotland, and she's joining us. Yeah, she's waving there. And Sandra will give you some insights into Cycling Scotland's work and also how their behaviour change programme can help fund and support various projects. My name is Manila, even though you can't see it on the little button there. And I'm also one of the project officers at the Active Travel Hub Kilmarnock. And I'm joined by my colleague Rory, just for some technical support. So if there are any problems, I'm hoping he can be of help. So the Ayrshire Women's Cycle Festival is a joint project between the 3 Ayrshire hubs. So that's the one in Kilmarnock, and then our sister hub in Ayr, and then there's also the Trinity hub in Irvine. And prior to the pandemic, this festival was held solely in person. But following the success of the last 2 online festivals, we've decided to offer you a more blended approach this year. And so all the 3 hubs, we aim to promote and encourage walking, cycling and scooting for more short journeys. So basically whenever possible, leave the cat at home, jump on your bike or tie the walking shoes instead. And also now that all the COVID restrictions have been eased, we once again able to offer a variety of activities, including cycle skills, bike maintenance, sessions and classes, instructor-led walks, rides, and general advice for any individuals or businesses looking to walk or cycle more. And you'll be able to find links to all 3 hubs on the Ayrshire Women's Cycle Festival website at www.ayrshirewomencyclefestival.org. And so just before I sort of hand over to Sandra, I'm just going to run through a few important housekeeping points. First of all, this webinar is being recorded. It's simply so that we can watch it back later and to share it with anybody who wasn't able to join us today. We'll be uploading the links to the recording on the website next week, so it'll be available on YouTube. Also to let you know, we can't see you, we can't hear you, but we do want to interact. So I'll draw your attention to the chat function at the bottom of the screen. And you can use this to chat to us, or to Sandra, or to the entire audience. So the only rule is just be kind. We should all be here and it should all be a safe space. And lastly, after the presentation, there will be time for questions. And if you'd like to ask a question, you can always post it into the chat at any point. We will obviously only answer them at the end, but do feel free to write at any point. And there is the option to post anonymously if you wish. Should we run out of time, we'll make sure to answer all the questions in a follow-up email, and this will be sent out to all registered participants. So basically now that the housekeeping rules are sorted, I'd like to hand over to Sandra.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me today. So I'm just gonna start sharing my screen, and if you can just let me know if you can see that. Okay, that would be good.
That's perfect.
Great. Okay. So thank you everyone for joining us today. So my name is Sandra Lavergne. I work as a development officer for communities at Cycling Scotland. So I'm just gonna kick off with a brief presentation on who we are. So we're Scotland's national cycling organisation. Basically, our vision is to provide a sustainable, inclusive and healthy Scotland where anyone, anywhere can enjoy all the benefits of cycling. So as part of our work, we aim to establish cycling as an accessible and practical travel option for people across Scotland. And to do that, we obviously work with quite a lot of partners on both a national and a local levels. So just to name a few, we we work very closely with Sustrans, with Pastoral, with the Air Saving Trust, and so on. I'm just gonna also mention our main areas of work. So I'm part of the behavior change team. And so our main focus is really on the delivery of the cycling friendly program, which I'm going to explain a bit more today. We've got a dedicated training team working on the coordination of cycle training for both children and adults. Our communications and marketing team work on the delivery of national campaigns. I'm sure you've heard about the Give Cycle Space campaign that was launched a few days ago. They also work on various events such as the Cycling Scotland National Conference, or they also take part in consultations and anything related to the National Monitoring Framework. We also work very closely with Transport Planning and Engineering, also known as TPNE. So they're a social enterprise offering advice on the design of a cycling infrastructure. So I've included all the direct contact details, so feel free to take note of that. But just so you know, the presentation will be shared later on, so you will have access to all of that. And if you would like to read a bit more about our work and about the main highlights from 2020-2021, you can also access our annual reports. I've included the link just here. So basically, I'm going to focus right now a bit more on our behavior change program, which is called Cycling Friendly. So basically, the Cycling Friendly program aims at supporting organizations across Scotland to encourage more people to cycle. So as you can see, we work with quite a lot of organizations, workplaces, universities and colleges, schools, community groups, and social housing providers. So all of those organizations that are involved in the program can benefit from a cycling friendly award scheme, and they can also access a development grant fund. So I'm going to provide a bit more information on the award as a starting point. And after that, I'll be able to really explain in details for each setting the type of fund that will be available. So just to go back to the Cycling Friendly Award, so obviously this is another way to support organizations to make cycling easier and more accessible to everyone. So basically, we provide a structured framework, we provide resources, some one-to-one support to help those organizations develop their own action plan. And we can also provide, additional information from our partner organizations. So when an organization gains the award, they obviously get a national recognition, and they also get a certificate which is valid for 3 years. And that certification certainly recognizes that organization's commitment and dedication to supporting cycling. So last financial year, about 82 organizations have successfully obtained the Cycling Friendly Award. If you think this is of interest, I've included the link for you to register your interest. So you just do that. It really takes 2 minutes. And from there, we'll just be able to get in touch with yourself and provide further information. So now that I just explained what the Cycling Friendly Award scheme was, I'm going to focus and spend more time on the access of the Development Grant Fund. So just some key information from there. So Cycling Scotland receives support from Transport Scotland. We've got access to funding that is very much capital focused. I've included a list for each setting, and as you can see, organizations can apply for up to £25,000. In terms of requirements, match funding is not a strict condition. However, we strongly encourage organizations to provide some in-kind contribution if they can. That can be, some volunteer or staff time, or even, access to some premises as well. So that would work for in-kind contributions. In terms of reporting aspect, if your organization is successful with funding, we ask you to provide a report after 6 months and another one after 12 months, following on the reception of the grant monies. So we try to be flexible around that, obviously, but at any time you can just come back to us if you have any questions on this. So I'm going to provide more information for each setting, as I said. So the first one is around workplaces. So maybe you've noticed that in your workplace, you could benefit from additional cycling facilities to help you cycle more to work. So in this case, your employer could potentially apply for the cycling friendly employer fund. They can apply for up to £25,000 per site, and we can provide support for them to access cycling facilities, which can be cycle parking, showers, changing facilities, lockers, and so on. Obviously, increasing access to bikes and bike accessories for staff, as well as bike maintenance equipment. So I included some sort of case studies, some good examples, organizations in the Ayrshire area that have been involved in the program. So we've got GlaxoSmithKline based in North Ayrshire. The aim of their project was basically to encourage more staff to cycle for commuting, to even go for bike rides at lunchtime, or even to use bikes for business errands. So they were successful with funding last year, and they obtained £2,500. So the fund helped them accessing one e-bike, as well as a dedicated bike storage facility. So the project is currently being delivered, but we've managed to get some feedback. And so far, it seems that there's been some very positive feedback from staff regarding the use of the e-bike, so that's really good. We also have the NHS Ayrshire and Arran. So 3 of their sites have successfully received the Cycling Friendly Employer Award. That was last year. And they've basically were able to demonstrate that they are able to provide cycling facilities for staff, such as cycle parking, for example. They also have a cycle to work scheme in place to ease the access of bikes for staff. And they also delivered various promotional initiatives and events. I'm thinking of some doctor bike sessions, for example. So just to kind of make sure all of those initiatives are accessible for all the workforce. So I'm going to move on to the second setting, this time the community work. So if you're part of a registered community group in Scotland, you could apply for up to £20,000. This time, you can also get support for cycling facilities in the community. So that could be cycle parking, cycle storage, obviously increasing access to bikes. I'm thinking of projects that potentially would like to reduce transport poverty or increase physical and mental health, for example. And so for this fund, community groups can have access to both capital and revenue funding. So for example, bikes and bike accessories could be combined with some cycle training, for example, with activities, sessional costs, promotional material, and so on. Once again, just a few examples, some good ones. So cycle station in East Ayrshire. So they've got a bike refurbishment program, and they're basically refurbishing and redistributing bikes in the local community with the aim of making cycling accessible and affordable to everyone. So they were successful with funding about 2 years ago, and they got just under £7,000. And so that enabled them to access a variety of bikes. So that was a mix of push bikes and trike. And so they were able to develop their own bike library. They also receive funding for bike accessories, so locks, helmets, lights, and so on, as well as signage. And we also have the second one is the Biosphere bike in South Ayrshire. So they obtain the cycling friendly community status in 2020, fairly similar to Cycle Station. So they've got a community bike hub, and they use the hub to provide a bike hire scheme. So once again, with the idea of increasing access to bikes in the local community. They also provide some bike maintenance and bike repair services, and they are very much contributing to the circular economy by refurbishing unused bikes. So that's kind of some good examples of the community work that can be done as part of the cycling friendly program. Let's move on to the schools. So this year we are inviting all primary and secondary schools in Scotland to apply for the Cycling Friendly Schools Fund. The main focus really will be on capital. So that means that the applications really should be focusing on increasing access to bikes and developing cycling facilities such as cycle parking. However, we can be flexible around that, and if some schools might need to get support, for example, for the delivery of training or for events, that's something that can be directly discussed with us. So feel free to get in touch anyway. More good stories of the work that has been done in schools. So we've got Girvan Academy in South Ayrshire. Basically, they wanted to increase access to bikes for pupils and for the local residents. And they thought that it would be quite good to get some underused school bikes for that. So they requested funding and were successful last year. And they were able to access some bike maintenance equipment, so toolkits, work stand, as well as bike accessories such as helmets. And obviously we've got St. John's Primary School in North Ayrshire. So they obtained the Cycling Friendly Primary School Award in 2020. Fairly similar to the previous example. So they demonstrated a strong commitment in supporting cycling. They provide suitable cycle parking facilities. They provide cycle training for pupils to help them gain gain some confidence cycling on the road. And they also led on various events and activities to raise awareness of active travel. Next one is around colleges and universities with the Cycling Friendly Campus Fund. They can apply for up to £25,000. As you can see, this one is capital only. So that means that anything related to events or sessional costs will not be included in the Cycling Friendly Campus Fund. However, they can get support to access, once again, some cycling facilities, access bikes and bike maintenance equipment. So obviously the aim is to encourage more staff and students in this case to cycle to campus. And finally, the Social Housing Partnership Fund. So it's a bit specific one. It doesn't have the title of cycling friendly, but the work being done is fairly similar. So that fund is managed in collaboration with the Scottish Federation of Housing Associations, Living Street Scotland, Sustrans Scotland, and obviously Cycling Scotland. So if you are part of social housing, then maybe you might be interested in this fund. So social housing providers can apply for up to £25,000 per site. The difference with this one is that all the projects supported are really aiming at encouraging residents to walk and cycle more. And so we can provide support to develop cycle parking facilities, some storage facilities, as well as street furniture, such as planters or sittings and so on. So I hope that gave you kind of a good understanding of the different opportunities in terms of funding, depending on obviously the organization you're working with. I mentioned that for some organizations, they can potentially have some support in terms of cycle training. So I just thought I would provide really key information on that. I'm not going to go through all of the cycle training courses that we are kind of managing and coordinating. I don't think that would be very much relevant for today, but if this is of interest, I've included the training course catalog in this slide. So feel free to have a look, and feel free to have a look at the cycling hub as well. So you will know when, you know, the next training courses will be taking place. But for today, I'm very much going to be focusing on the Bikeability Scotland program, and the next one will be on cycle training for adults. So let's just go through the Bikeability Scotland program. So if you're not familiar with it, it's the National Cycle Training Program for school children. So it's really taking place in schools in Scotland. The aim is to provide children with the skills and confidence for them to cycle safely on the roads. So there are 3 different levels, but I would say the level number 2 is really the key one. That's when we really kind of introduce children to cycle on the road. And the reason I'm mentioning it today is because if you're part of a school, if you know a school and they might be interested in applying for funding, I think it's quite important for them to really consider taking part in the Bikeability Scotland program and trying to make sure that pupils will have access to cycle training to learn how to ride a bike and obviously to build up their confidence cycling on the road. So if this is of interest, I would encourage you to contact your Bikeability Scotland coordinator. So I included, sorry, I included the link on this slide, and just for your information, you will find a contact in North Ayrshire, South Ayrshire and East Ayrshire. So I'm sure you will get some support if you have any questions on that. I also included a direct link on our website if you would like to really read a bit more about how it works. And I'm sure you will find what you're looking for in there. And now I'm just going to move on to the adult cycle training part. So this one will be more relevant for community groups. So as I said before, I think the community fund is really the only one providing support for capital and revenue. So that means that if you are working on a funding application for a community project, you can request support to access cycle training for the local community. So I think really the key ones, the one that can be the most useful would be the Essential Cycling Skills course. So as you can see, there are different levels and different courses. So we're trying to really make sure that it's gonna be suitable depending on the ability of the participants. But for example, if in your local community, there are some people just saying that they never got the chance to learn how to ride a bike, it might be good to start with the absolute beginners. You might hear people saying that they know how to ride a bike, but they haven't done so for a very long time and they really don't feel comfortable, you know, riding on their own. In this case, the Introduction to On-Road course might be the best one, and obviously, and so on. So you can find more information on that directly on our website. On a different kind of side of things, if you would like to get some lead rights in your community, but you don't know, or there's no person really with the right qualification for that, then the Cycle Right Leader course might be the best one for you. Once again, that can be included in your funding bit. And finally, the Cycle Trainer course, I would say, so this one is way more elaborated. It's a 4-day course. So if you've already done the Cycle Right Leader course, you've got experience, but you would like to really go further and be able to teach people how to ride a bike and really become a cycle trainer, then the last course would be the best one for you. So basically the program has been quite successful, and it's really growing from year to year. So that's very positive. Just really some key figures from the last financial year. So we're really happy that to be able to allocate over £2 million to over 190 organizations. So that's really good. And as I said, it's really growing compared to the previous year. I'm just gonna kind of highlight just a few things. So as you can see, we've got just under £1 million allocated to workplaces. So there's really a lot of engagement with workplaces, and we're working with health and social care organizations, retailers as well. So there's quite a lot of demand. So that's reflected in there. And the other comment will be around schools. So only 27 secondary schools were awarded. So the reason for that is because last year the fund was slightly different. So it wasn't open for primary schools, and we were not able to provide support for schools to access cycle parking facilities. But we've made some changes. We collaborated very closely with Sustrans. And so right now, the Cycling Friendly Schools Fund, as I said, is open for both primary and secondary schools. And obviously, as I said before, we're going to be able to provide support for cycling facilities, bikes, bike accessories, and so on. So just something I wanted to highlight in there. So the good news is that all the funds are currently open. So at this point, we expect that all the applications that will be received by the 23rd of May will be assessed for grant allocation in June. So we expect that we will be able to go back to applicants from June onwards to inform you about the outcome of your application. Obviously, we very much encourage you to get in touch with us beforehand, especially if you're new in the program and if you have more questions, about really, what to include, how to, deliver the project, what to consider. So we are very happy to arrange some one-to-one meetings and answer any questions you might have. So feel free to contact the team at cyclingfriendly@cycling.scot. And just to finish, I included a few resources just here. So we've got obviously quite a lot of projects aiming at increasing access to bikes and improving cycle parking facilities. So we've got dedicated guidance for that. So that's included in here. And I think it's also quite good for you to have a look at the previous projects that were supported by the program. So once again, I've included all the links for each setting, just for you to kind of get a good understanding, a good idea of what can be done basically with the Cycling Friendly program. And that's it from me. So I hope that that was helpful. I hope that it really answered some questions and really provided a good clarification on how Cycling Scotland could help you and help you develop your cycling project, basically. And I think I'm happy to answer any questions just now. Just gonna hand over again to the host.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sandra. If you just stop sharing your screen as well, I think that will bring us back to
Here we go. that
There
should be
we
okay
go.
now.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Perfect.
To
Thank
me, I hope for
Okay.
anyone listening, I hope that was really helpful to you. To me, that was really helpful. I like how you separate it as well, very clearly with each of the settings.
Good.
Quite often that can be what's really tricky as well. You know, you hear the overall, oh, there's funding, but how does that apply to me? And I thought that was really helpful.
Good.
So now everybody has a chance as well. If you have any questions, again, we can't hear you, I'm afraid. So you will have to use the chat function that is down at the bottom. So please do feel free to pop any questions in there. I would like to kick off with a question though, because I had a colleague of mine that was like, oh, you going on this webinar? I have a question. Can you please ask her? So
Sure.
she's working with a school. And
Okay.
they had, was it last year, the year before, they had received funding to set up a bike library. And that's been going really well, and they've been really excited about it. And now they've reached a point where they would like to expand that.
Okay.
For anybody who's already had funding, is it possible to then continuously apply for more? Is that then a different fund, or will that still go under the cycling friendly fund?
Yeah, so we've been supporting organizations, you know, on multiple occasions. So they were successful with funding on multiple occasions. So the good news is that you are more than welcome to apply again, and that applies, you know, regardless of whether your application has been successful or not. I think we're very much trying to help organizations, you know, develop their projects, and really making sure that, as you said, if they realize that it's been growing, again, it's kind of a good way for them to provide evidence for a new funding bid, explaining that they already got funding, but now, you know, they don't have enough bikes, or they need even new facilities, and having this evidence will really, you know, support a new funding bid, and we're going to obviously consider that. So no, obviously really happy for organizations to apply again. Obviously the only thing will be that if it's a school, they're just going to apply for the school fund, because otherwise they wouldn't be eligible for the others, but that's really the only condition.
Excellent. I'm sure I'm going to pass that on. She'd like to hear that.
Good.
I'm just keeping my eye out on the chat here as well. So far I haven't seen any questions there, but do feel free. I know sometimes you just need to take it all in. It's a lot of information as well there.
It is.
But yeah, and again as well, the presentation will be sent to you afterwards, so you will have that and be able to access all the good links as well that Sandra has provided.
I guess I'm just gonna clarify, because I get that question quite often as well. So a lot of organizations are kind of looking into having electric bikes. So basically, if really, I would say, if the main focus is on providing electric bikes to staff or the community, or in any other settings, really, it's probably best to go to the Energy Saving Trust, which is another partner organization. So they've got a dedicated e-bike grant fund, which is available, and I suppose will be available later on this year. It's not currently open at the moment, but in this case, you know, those organizations can obviously come back to us and ask us, but it's very likely that we will direct you to the Energy Saving Trust if really, again, the main focus is on, you know, electric bikes. As you can see in the presentation, with the employer setting, one of the groups, they were successful with funding and they got 1 e-bikes. Again, in this case, that's something that we can consider, because they might kind of want to use that as a trial project and as a really trial to see if that's working. And if they see that there's a need, then again, they might be able to use that, but in this time to go to the Energy Saving Trust for another funding bid, if that makes sense.
That makes sense. So yeah, for e-bikes as well, that we can always as well make sure to provide a link to the Energy Just as well, for anybody who might be interested in that. I can see Ruth has contributed with the question in the chat. Are these funds open for businesses wanting to promote and purchase cycle-friendly equipment? So this is for customers rather than employees.
So in this case, I don't think that would work. I think really the only fund that could potentially help would be the employer one. And as I said before, under employer, we're also helping retailers, but the aim would be to really target a mix of staff and customers. So the focus really, couldn't be really only on customers in this case, if that makes sense.
I hope that clarifies it, Ruth. Otherwise, if not, please do.
Yeah.
Please do.
Feel free to ask other questions.
Chat as well, because it is to be of help as well.
Actually already answered the question through that I was going to ask about how easy the process is for people that have never applied, and it's very obvious through how it's been delivered that you're very, very flexible with whatever fund that it can be, and there is that constant contact back and forth to communicate with them to make it work, I guess.
Yep.
No matter the circumstance. So I think there'll be a lot of folk out there thinking how easy it is, but I think with what you've explained, it's a pretty easy process, and you guys make it easy. Yeah,
exactly. At least we're really, doing our best to do that, but we're still very, very open to any feedback. If any applicants really found the process a bit complicated, or if they have any comments on that, but we've tried to make the application form as simple as possible. Basically, like any other project, what we kind of need to know is how you've made some consultation with your target audience. How did you manage to identify the key barriers that prevent people from cycling? And from there, having those data, you're able to explain what you would like to do. So what's the purpose of your project? Any other information can be added regarding partnership work. And then obviously we ask for a budget section. Just a note on the budget section, there's no requirements either for the applicants to provide 2, 3, 4 quotes from suppliers. It's really best to be able to compare prices, of course, but again, that's not a requirement from us. So I would say try to compare prices as much as possible and try to go with what's the best value for money in this case. And really the last part of the application form is about the key outcomes expected for the project, what you're trying to achieve basically, and a last section on the risks associated. And again, how are you gonna try to prevent them and overcome them. So that's very basic kind of information about how to manage a project really. And again, as I said before, we've got resources associated. So if it's totally new for you, you're not quite sure where to start, what to do, the best thing to do is really to get in touch with us, having a chat, and we'll be able to kind of provide suitable guidance. Again, some organizations might get in touch with us right now thinking that, they absolutely need to apply by the 23rd of May. If you're very at early stages, I would say take the time you need to really understand exactly what the needs are, in your area, what you're trying to do, and to make sure that you're going to provide a very strong funding bit. And if it's not going to be submitted this time, it's possible that later on this year, there's going to be another more funding available. It's not something I can guarantee just now, unfortunately, but it's possible for some settings that there's still going to be funding available, and that means that we're going to accept more applications. So I would say it's quite important for the applicants, especially if they're new in the program and they're not very familiar with funding bids and how everything works, just to take the time to do this work beforehand, really trying to understand instead of just kind of trying to do something in a rush. And that might be not a really good application, unfortunately, and that also might mean that the project might not really go as planned, or not everything would have been thought through. So it's probably best to really do that. So that's kind of the main kind of advice I would give, I think. But yes, as you said, we are flexible. So that means that if you are successful with funding, and you basically need more time to deliver the project, as long as we know that that's fine for us, and again, we can provide more support if needed. If you need to kind of change the allocation of funding, again, we would ask the organizations to talk to us beforehand and to go through a specific process. And once everything has been approved, they can just go ahead with kind of the new agreement. So very much trying to be flexible, very much trying to kind of make sure that the project will be successful and will be delivered. We've seen a lot of organizations struggling because of COVID-19, because of Brexit, being able to access bikes, equipment, and so on has been very, very challenging. So that's really out of control. So what we can only do is, trying to support those organizations and give more time for them to kind of finalize their project, really. Yeah, I hope that answers the question.
Yeah,
I think it does as well. And I was about to say, thinking back as well, this is obviously going to be available later. So for any participant, yes, we can provide the presentation, but I'm going to make sure to include some links in the description as well, also to both how to access the applications, but also your contact details as well, because as you said as well, Sandra, gonna hang you up on this, but these one-to-one meetings, if you are really unsure, I think that might be quite helpful if it's something that you do, because it can be a little bit intimidating having to write your first grant application if that is the case. So that would be also a good place to start, I would say. I can also see that Ruth has just come back asking if if there's any other funds that might be open to this at the moment.
So not on top of my head, but that's something I can explore and trying to see if maybe other partner organizations might know about that potentially. Yeah.
We will get back to you then afterwards, Ruth. So hopefully we can see if there should be anything available. It's a good question though, because of course it could be really helpful as well. One thing is to help the employers, but another thing is also to help the people they're engaging with. Yeah, good question. If anybody else has any questions here at the end, do feel free to pop them in the chat. If not,
I've got one.
You got one, sorry.
No, yeah, I've got one. So Sandra, pre-pandemic.
Yeah.
Once people have completed the application process.
Yep.
Was it the case that one of your team then went out to the locations to meet the people? Is that Is it just going to be virtually, or will there be people to come and assess?
So I wasn't part of the team at this point, but from what I've heard, yes, like it was possible to really get even some like first meetings, like first chats, on site for the development officers to really kind of have a good idea of the setting of the area, of like kind of answering questions if needed. We're hoping to kind of go back to that, gradually, and really hoping that, regardless of where the organizations are at with their projects, we're going to be able to kind of go out there once again, having face-to-face meetings and being able to provide this type of support. But yes, that was a fairly common pre-pandemic, for like site visits, but like any other kind of meetings with the organizations that are involved in the program. It's getting potentially more complicated, I would say, at this point. So we're not all based in the same area either. We're
Mhm.
not all going to the office. So I'm still not quite sure what it will look like, but I'm fairly sure that will, you know, if there's a very specific query or I don't know, very specific challenges, and it's going to be best to have a look on site, then we'll do our best to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I think primarily why I was asking that, because it's one thing seeing it on paper and seeing it virtually, but actually on the ground,
Yeah.
Again, it might just be an advantage for your team to go out and able to see what's on the ground, and then you can give advice and
Yeah.
to the people who are applying for it.
Yeah,
No,
exactly.
that's fine.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Excellent. I'm just having a look at the chat here. I can't see any more questions. Do you have any more questions this time? Sorry, Rory, before I
No. I'm all out.
Oh, do you know what? Then the only thing left to say is thank you so much, Sandra, for coming and joining us today and telling us more about the funds and also Cycling Scotland's work. It's been really interesting for me, very informative. I hope anybody who's been listening as well has found it useful. And should you have any questions as well, we are going to send you the presentation with Sandra's details, and for anybody listening afterwards, I'm going to leave some details below. So you should be able to contact either of us to get more information if you need it. But otherwise, thank you so much for joining us, and have a good night.
Thank you for having me. Thank you very much. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.